In the quiet English village of Dodleston, Cheshire, a man named Ken Webster brought home a BBC microcomputer in the mid-1980s. He expected nothing more than a basic word processor. What he got instead were strange messages left on the screen by someone who claimed to be living in the year 1521. The bizarre case would come to be known as the Dodleston Messages, and to this day, it remains one of the most unsettling time travel mysteries ever recorded. Ken Webster was a school teacher. He lived with his girlfriend Debbie in a modest house in Dodleston, and life was unremarkable until one evening in 1984. Booting up his computer, Ken discovered something unusual, a message typed out on the screen, but neither he nor Debbie had written it. The words were oddly phrased, almost poetic, and written in archaic English. It read, "True are the nightmares of a person that fears. Safe are the bodies of the silent world. Turn, pretty flower, turn towards the sun, for you shall grow and sow. But the flower has gone stiff. What the hell is happening?" At first, they assumed it was some kind of prank, maybe a glitch, maybe a joke from a friend. But soon, more messages appeared and they grew stranger. The messages were signed by someone calling himself Thomas Harden, a man who claimed to be living in the 16th century, specifically around 1521. In one of his earliest notes, he wrote, "I write on behalf of my house which is built upon the ground that you now live. I am not mad, I speak truth. What strange device dost thou possess? 'Tis like a box of light filled with the devil's work." Thomas described himself as a farmer, living in the very same location where Ken's house now stood, but centuries earlier. His words were written in Middle English, the kind you'd find in Shakespeare's plays. Thomas spoke of his life, his struggles, his fears. He seemed confused as to how he was communicating with people from the future, but insisted that his words were real. Even more chilling, Thomas described things that aligned with historical records, details of village life, farming practices, even local dialects. Ken, curious and cautious, began to write back, leaving responses on the computer. A strange correspondence had begun, one that spanned across nearly 500 years. Over time, the tone of the messages shifted. Thomas began to fear for his safety. In one entry, he warned, "They are not men as you and I. They come in the night and take things from my home. I am afeared, for they speak in tongues unknown and look upon me as if I am not real." And then, something even more bizarre happened. A third voice entered the conversation. This one didn't claim to be from the past, but from the future. The writer, calling himself 2109, explained, "We are not a god. We are not divine. You are not to know who we are. Time is not what you think it to be. It is but a road, many roads, all of which cross. We will direct you for the good of mankind." The messages now hinted at experiments, at manipulation of time and space, and at forces far beyond Ken's understanding. It was no longer just a curious back and forth. It had become something darker, something that suggested Ken and Debbie were caught in a timeline far bigger than their own. Neighbors grew suspicious. Friends accused Ken of fabricating the story, but the computer kept typing, the voices kept answering, and the mystery deepened. Ken eventually compiled these events into a book called The Vertical Plane, published in 1989. In it, he shared dozens of the messages, along with his own theories and fears. Critics called it a hoax. Skeptics argued that Ken or Debbie, or even one of their friends, had invented the entire story. But others noticed the peculiar accuracy of the Old English dialect, something difficult to fake without advanced historical knowledge. If it was a prank, it was an elaborate one. And if it wasn't, then perhaps Ken Webster had stumbled into one of the strangest cases of time communication ever recorded. Decades later, people still argue about the Dodleston Messages. Were they simply the invention of a bored teacher? Could the computer have been hacked? Unlikely, given the isolated technology of the 1980s? Or was it something else? Some believe it was a form of retrocausality, communication backwards through time. Others see it as evidence of paranormal activity, with spirits using technology to speak across centuries. And the smaller group wonders if Ken really did make contact with both the past and the future. The case of the Dodleston Messages has never been resolved. The house still stands quiet in the village of Dodleston. The computer is gone, but the words remain, printed in Ken Webster's book, a record of a mystery that refuses to die. "I know not whereof I am. I know not what time it is. I only know I must write, for to be silent is death." Were they the ramblings of a trickster, or the proof that time is not as solid, not as linear as we think? Perhaps, one day, we'll know the answer. Until then, the Dodleston Messages remain one of the most haunting mysteries of modern times.